take some notes while you're doing it. And then the idea is to sort of see if I can help pull some of this together. Because I would tell you, like, kind of the place most authors are at this point. So good books, great books are simple but not easy, meaning it's a simple concept, but it's not easy to do. Whereas most of y'all are complicated and not easy. So the goal here is to see if we can help take it to that point where we unlock the simple. So
perfect.
That's what we're going to do. All right. So here's where we're going to start. So I took a look at the stuff you shared, which is helpful. I guess the biggest thing I like to start with is there a story that you think best illustrates the big idea behind this book? And that could be, a story from the news, someone you interviewed, a story from, your own personal experience. What story best illustrates the big idea here?
I don't know if this is the best one, but it's the one that's coming to mind, so I'm going to go with it.
Good.
So I originally thought it would be the typical way we tell the hero's journey of like, okay, things got really difficult. And so the story that's coming to mind is of Anthony Cozy, who's like a heroin addict, and he gets clean, and then he starts building his life again and realizes like a bunch of things fall away. Relationship falls away. His band falls away. This job is not fitting him. And so he's like, that's it. Sells everything, moves out to California, and then starts kind of building everything up again. And what I sort of envision with even my own life stories and all these others is that it's like, okay, and then it's done. And then you do this scary thing, and then you live happily ever after, right? Because that's your reward for taking the road less traveled, doing the thing. But what actually happened was that the same thing sort of repeated itself. Like, okay, then there's another relationship, there's another band, there's another job, like that's not working. And it's actually like that the turning point was when all of that stuff fell away while he's out in LA and realizes like, this is an inside job. Like I need to deal with whatever I'm not dealing with. And like, that's actually taking the road less traveled. And so, where he's at in his journey, like you don't see like the typical cash and prizes and things that you might expect with like, oh, this is a success story. But like, I think that didn't realize it until I'm saying it right now, but I think that's actually the point that like, yes, these external things taking the road less traveled in your daily life, and maybe it's a small shift, maybe it's a big shift, but whatever, that stuff is important. And I think it's part of what gets you to actually facing whatever the internal challenge is. But it's kind of like that going inside, like that's really really the only way you're going to deal with these feelings of wanderlust on the straight and narrow, is if you like, that's the stuff that you have to look at. And I think that's kind of what fits with the Joseph Campbell and Carl Jung and all of these other pieces that are kind of have been popping up, that it's an inside job.
Got it. Cool. Okay. I like it. And then we talked about this idea that there's, good books always have this element of attention, right? They've got this like, everyone thinks this, but I think that.
Yeah.
You sort of were indicating that. How would you best tell that? Because I think you're trying to do a lot right now, which I think is partially what we want to focus on. But what's the way, in some ways, maybe that ties into what you said about Anthony? How would you describe that to someone?
So the way I would describe that tension, and this I actually do have some writing about for my own story. It's like there's this idea of what my life is gonna. If my life looked like this, then I'd be happy. If I lived in California, if I could surf every day, if I had this type of job, blah, blah, blah. But the reality of it is that like, the more I do this work, the more I realize it's not about that, but there's still stuff in me that's afraid to take those risks, or like, it's kind of like I'm not even convinced that it's okay to take the road less traveled. Like there's still, and I'm not articulating it well, but there's fear that is getting in the way. And I might project it out onto other people, but it's actually like, again, it's an inside job. It's me that's keeping me from that.
Got it.
The other thing that I wanted to say, I have not made these changes to the big idea worksheet yet, but I had a conversation with Elissa, and we've decided to take a lot of the stuff that's around like my recovery and kind of spirituality, and that is going to be its own separate book. So I think that will help eliminate a lot of the clutter that's in there right now, but that's not really reflected there yet. So
got it. Okay. So then maybe tell me, I mean, so what parts of your story, like, so why did you come to this kind of conclusion then? Obviously there's this whole separate thing that will happen with another book down the road, but tell me the parts of your story that inspired you, or what gave you the saying, like, I've got to write this book.
So I was at a wedding this weekend and with a bunch of family members, and I tend to be the person, people are like, oh my God, you've done all these cool things, you're so inspiring, blah, blah, blah. And that's great, but if I can do these things, anyone can do these things. And I believe it. I don't believe that it starts with, I refuse to believe this idea that like living a fulfilled life, or like, that you need to go off and do something crazy. Like I feel like it's really, it's actually very attainable. There are little steps that you can take. And the good news is, because it isn't contingent on all of these outside things, you don't have to get all of those settles in order to feel okay. So if you want a little bit more joy or fulfillment or, coolness in your life, like you can do that now. You can do that today. And I feel like that's kind of the thing behind it. And so this book is more about making the choice to do something a little bit different. And it's about the choices and not letting fear get in the way. And sort of the part that we're leaving for the next book is more about how the stories that we are raised with and that kind of shape our identity, like needing to strip those away in order to really kind of come into your own. Like, that's a different topic. This is more just like little baby steps and choices you make in life. Maybe the tension is that, like, maybe a better way to put it is that it's like this false dichotomy of, oh, there's the safe choice and then there's what I really want to do, and sort of breaking that down. That like, no, that's really not what it is.
Got it. So, hold on, let me take one quick note. So who do you then think are the people who are going to best benefit from this book? Like, who's your reader that you want to read this?
So I'm envisioning I'm actually envisioning a pretty broad audience. Like, I feel, but if I think about it, I definitely think there's kind of like the women, late 20s to 50s maybe, who are kind of that sort of appeal to that kind of spiritual self-help, eat, pray, love kind of audience. But the stories, and especially as I continue to build this out, are from people of all ages. And I think because it's not just about like career or certain stage specific elements in your life, like you know, Elissa pointed out that she thinks it has a much broader appeal, and I agree. Like, I think it's much more portable.
So I wouldn't disagree with that, but I would tell you that, like, I still think, so I would say it this way, there's no such thing as a mass market book. There's a book that like appeals to a niche audience that then expands from there. And so I think theoretically, but it doesn't ever happen. There's no book that ever spreads from like, oh my God, everyone loves this one. It's always like a very, very niche thing that happens to like be expanded. So I would push you to not do that, like, or not take it that way. Because it's harmful, because then you're like, everyone should love this, and then no one loves it. So I would own an audience and then spend it more. Like Brene Brown never thought that everyone would love her book. Like that wasn't it. It was like for a very small set of people, and it turned out that small set of people actually like is much bigger than she thought. So just as a framework there. So then I would say this is going to appeal to women who are in their 30s and 40s, who are probably single or divorced and kind of don't look like the conventional, and they don't have kids. Probably they don't have kids. So I think it's kind of like the spinsters. Is that a crowd? Like, but I feel like it's sort of, I feel like it's sort of in that market of, Cool. Okay. I mean, I would own that. Like, I actually think that it's better for you to own the like
cat ladies. It's for cat ladies, Eric. That's who it's for.
I think that, like, what I would say is you would rather have something that is targeted and then tell people how to like expand it from there than like be
perfect.
Broad, right? It's sort of my piece on it. All right. So. All right, so a couple thoughts for you. I'm going to share some things here. So I think hold on one second. Oops. Okay, sorry. All right, so a couple things. So I think the like I said before, sort of the point where we are at is we're really trying to focus on like positioning, and I think. Here's what I would tell you is I don't know whether you're writing 2 books in the future or separating things like that. I think part of this is like you're just going to have to like not try and do so much. Like I think your big idea document is a lot, and as much as I appreciate Elissa, like you got to like just make this the best book ever and not try to like second books, third books, because I worry that like you're still all over the place a lot of these things, and I think that's the risk to you. Is like this should be your one best book ever. And like, don't worry about whatever those sorts of things are. So that's just my 2 cents in this one as a brain positioning thing. So what we're going to talk about, so the core thing that I want you to be focusing on is this idea of how you position your book. And so, as I said, good books are simple, but not easy, meaning they're a simple concept to get your head around, but not easy to implement. It takes work and effort and these sorts of things. And so again, I think like most people at this point, you're complicated and not easy, which is fine. That's the goal. So the way that we kind of make the case for the positioning of this book is through your introduction. Now, your introduction is sort of that start of the book. It kicks the whole thing off. Now, if you think about your book like a movie, the introduction is not the first 5 minutes of the movie. It's like the movie trailer. It's going to make the case for the whole movie. That's the way to think about it. And so it is a little formulaic, but it really does have this sort of formula, I guess, that we're going to take you through a little bit to sort of do these things. So, so let me share some thoughts with you a little bit as we go through this one, and I try to help you. The next step for you actually is you're going to write your introduction, and you're going to write it because I think once you do, it's going to help you lock in these things. But I think I wouldn't worry about what's this book or next book. You just like want to write really one great book, and if you write a great one, you'll have the opportunity to write a second book. But right now, you won't until you write the first great one. So I pasted all this stuff at the bottom of your sort of big idea document.
Okay.
See, is it sharing? What's going on here? Can you see my screen or no?
I could for a hot second, and now I can't, but let me make sure it's not behind anything.
No, I think it's like something weird. My computer's like being really super slow right now. Try to clean this here.